So I thought I'd make a video about, here I'm sitting here in my apartment, July 4th, fireworks aren't until Saturday, and it's an hour walking hour back. And I think the Mac in Mackinac was alright. I think I probably would have chose something else next time. I probably should have chose the other. They had another one where it had like kale and I don't know what it's like a special type of bean or a seed, like quinoa or something like that. And had spinach and some other really great stuff that sounded a lot more healthier. But it was alright. Regardless, it's still veggies. And, just trying to adjust, see how my health is, because I have to go whatever with what my environment is. So hopefully I can exercise pretty well, start losing some weight, building some more muscle. But like I said, this is going on for so long. I just kind of have to go with the rhythm of everything that's kind of going on. So anyway, I was going to talk about this drawing that I did. This drawing that I'm talking about that I did, this is some of the most, to me personally, this is what I talk about when I say that it scares me. Like there's certain things in my mind that are so detailed to like very simple things that I'm so concrete about that I don't even know how I was able to remember this shit. And it's weird, like it just stored into my brain somehow, and it's different. It's different from when my mind starts to assume and create what somebody would look like if they were doing something they weren't supposed to, or if I actually did see that, or it's a different type of, it's almost kind of like a eureka. And the reason I say this eureka moment is because this is what the eureka moment was. I talk about that, when we were in this nurse's office. This is the doctor's room. This is the hallway. This is where we are. The door, I want to say, is either on this side or it's on this side. But I kind of put it toward this side. I'm going to make another adjustment here, but I don't remember. I think it could have been both of these doors, but the room was a lot smaller. I'm not a very good artist, but the bed was at the very corner of the room. I was up next to the bed. My dad was over here, and the nurse was over here. The TV monitor was right here, and Frankie was somewhere over here. And when we left, when we decided to leave and walking, I remember walking and I was up at the very front, and this is when I talked about that I turned around to look at my mother, and I talked about what her expressions were since she was doing this, and she was just kind of like like she was focusing on surviving, like I gotta figure out a plan, what's the next thing I gotta do. And I remember my father looking. When I looked, he looked. I don't think there was a lot of conversation. There wasn't talking in the hallway. There was maybe like, oh, so maybe we're gonna have kids, and like maybe 2, 3, like one sentence the whole time. And my father, when I looked, he was looking over at my mother like this, like he was kind of looking off and looking in a direction like, that's how women do it. That's what women are. And I think this is where the behavior comes in, where the male believes this is how many generations and many people have done through life. Some are healthy, some are forced, some you have no choice, some are all willingly, and it's simply, you can make those choices because obviously money controls and buys pretty much everything in life. And, what do you want to do? You want to eat out of a rat hole and toilet shit hole? Or do you want to be judgmental and and short yourself of a good life? So, that's what I have to say about that. So, I do want to say that as we're walking down that hall, I looked behind me and I was looking for Frankie, and I couldn't see him. I don't know where he was. And I said, this is the eureka moment. And I talked about it, that it just astonishes me. I said, where's Frankie? And he goes, I'm right here. And he was right behind my dad, and I couldn't see anything for some reason. I think that the halls were really narrow. From what I remember, the halls were pretty narrow. And it wasn't like a hospital. It was like either a clinic or like a personal doctor's office. And I do remember the jelly. They were putting sonogram. But that's what I remember more than anything, is Frankie saying, I'm right here. And I said, where's Frankie? Where's Frankie? And I said Frankie or something. I don't know. He was kind of maybe trailing along a little bit, or maybe he didn't hear me the first time. And we're walking down the hall. So this is something that you can tell Frankie, if he's perfectly fine. That would be the eureka moment for him. I don't know. I think Frankie's memory is really good, but I'm not sure Frankie can remember that well, because I feel like my memory is more of a curse as opposed to more of will power of wanting to know. I'm not sure how that works, but I don't know. Professionals know what you remember, what you want to remember. But as far as it goes with the whole situation with the nurse going over the stomach with this jelly and this type of sonogram, I remember the doctor saying slightly, you looking and said, I think you have twins. Yeah, I think. And I'm like a 60% feeling and confidence in my brain to 70% that she said twins. And I'm also, I'm going to say, I don't know if this makes any sense to how I'm saying this, but it's like, I feel like she says, like I'm a 60 to 80% chance that I feel, and I remember her saying, you wait, hold on, I think there's triplets. I think there's 3. And she was like, 3, like, so I don't know. I don't want to sound, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, but the reason I say that's what I remember. I do remember, I'm going to say more than 60%. I'm going to say about 70% that I remember them saying. And it's hard for me to say this with equity of truth because, obviously I already know Julian's twins, but I don't know if it's triplets yet. So it would entail how I make this conversation and how I feel confidence of what my memory is to what I already know. So, but I want to say that she had this expression that the second time that she talked was a heavy expression. And this heavy expression was like I remember she's like did this, like, what? Like a surprise. Like she, what? Like she said something and then she said, what? Like there was an entailing, like, expression, like, like a woman to see another woman, like, oh my God, you're going to have 3 babies, So, I don't remember what the situation was. I'm going to say this woman was a white woman. This wasn't a Mexican woman. This is a white woman. And I don't know, if the doctor records were even able to be picked up. I don't know how well documented things like that ever got picked up, because I talk about that when I was a kid, I remember Julian being pregnant in my mom's stomach. And I remember, putting my hand and ear or against my mom's stomach, and I could hear and feel Julian kicking as a kid. I could feel him kicking. And my mother's like, Mira, está kicking, he's moving, look, he's moving. And so, I think that I just wanted to say something about that, but I remember the reason I say this, I can't remember if it was triplets, because I remember the second time that she talked a sentence, she was like, wait, and as she was moving, she goes, huh? Like that, kind of like a little bit like that, like surprised, like, oh my God, this is a lot for me. Oh my God, this is, you know how girls do it whenever they're doing the type of girl stuff with each other, and they're going to have a baby. So that's what I think is important for me to be able to say. My mom told me she had 3 kidneys, but she said, oh yeah, tengo 3. I always believed, my mom was telling me this as a little kid. I thought my mom had, she told me that the way that she said, she goes, oh yeah, I have tenido 3 kidneys, y digo que uno estaba como pegado como lo otro o algo así. She said that one of them was attached to one of the kidneys. So, I don't know really what to say with that. And then I asked my mother, I said, what? And I looked at my mom because I was like, dang, we're like more mutants. I was like, this fucked up. It's kind of like, it's a weird thing to understand, like, okay, you're living with 3 kidneys. Who has 3 kidneys and survives? Or doesn't go to a doctor? I mean, that's a medical breakthrough. That's a what do they call those, like, people that, like, savants, or people born with like 4 arms or 2 heads, like, and they're still alive. Like, it's a medical astonishment to the medical world that these types of people survive somehow and born this way and fully functional. And for someone to have 3 kidneys is unheard of for me. I've never heard of anything. I've watched Ripley's Believe It or Not all the time as a kid, and I was Guinness Books of World Records all the time. And I never heard anything like this. And my dad was a nurse, so. But I do remember the second verse where there was an heavy expression to say that, she was moving. So this is why I believe that there was 3. Because she goes, oh my God. She said, yeah, you're going to have twins. Yeah, there's twins. Come on, there's 3. Like, she goes like she, I didn't want to say those are the same exact words that she said. So that's what I have to say about that. If there's 3, that blows me away to even understand that Lucio didn't just pick up 1 child, he picked up 2 children. And let's just say that he didn't pick up 2 children. Who's to say that someone else didn't show up, that we didn't know, to take 1 child and then the other child goes to Lucio. So Lucio didn't even know, because I believe, at least at this moment, that if I don't know, I'm not the professional, if my mother's smart enough to do that for the children, because that's what a mother does, like mothers put their babies down the bank of a river, hoping that somebody will pick up a child, like we watch in the movies, I think that my mother possibly could have gave the child to someone else to pick up, because she could have the child set up in 2 different places. So in case one dies or in case one's hurt, you have them sort of in these places. And what makes this very astonishing to me is that I think that's something that a mother would do or a mom would do. Because even for Lucio, I think him taking 2 children, taking 2 kids by himself is a lot. Wherever he would have been taking these kids, he would have had to split them up in different houses. So, who's to say? I don't even know where to start with this one. I don't even know where to start with this one, to me, because I'm thinking to myself, well, if say he did take both kids and these twins were being raised in a different city, that means there's 3 of them, and Jillian's the one that was separated at birth. He wasn't with his triplets. And my mom's supposed to be with triplets. So Marco, as I know, he's only twins. My mother, I did say that, reference that, but I wanted to say that, and Frankie was there 100%. It was only me, Mom, Dad, and Frankie. There's 4 of us. No one else. I remember the walls being brown wood, like that dark brown wood you see right here. It was all dark brown all the way down the halls. It was like all dark brown. All of it was. The walls were. It was all dark brown like that. If not, maybe even a little bit more darker. So that's what I had to say about that. I mean, I'm 40 years old. The time's gone. Whoever fucked it off and never did it ain't gonna change. I don't. I'm 40. I don't care. That time is up. As far as for me and Frankie, some of the things that I think about this situation with Frankie not being well is that I'll never be able to talk these conversations about him with him ever in life again. To say, hey, what do you remember whenever this happened? Because you don't understand how I understand how Frankie functions in that house. That's what nobody else understands. Like, I'm very analytical to what he's doing in life. I understand very well that we live in a very small, remote house. And so why Frankie, I gotta say, he's going forward, but understanding, then he starts not to want to remember a lot of things in the past. Like, whenever we went and we saw a baby snatched, Frankie was 4 years older than me. He had to remember this very well. And I want to say I don't remember if I had a conversation about this one day. Or I thought about it, and I wanted to say something to him, and I said, hey, do you remember there was a baby that got pulled or something? Do you remember whenever, or I may have said, Frankie, do you remember, because he was laying on the floor watching TV, his kind of legs up against the wall, up against the couch, back against the couch on the floor. And I said, and I think I had said, like, do you remember when Jillian was born, we went to the hospital? And go, oh, yeah. And he may have thought of that, but he thinks and he sees a child. So he doesn't really reference it. So this is a miscommunication, or they're not fully understanding of if I had that remembrance of conversation with him, because he doesn't bring it up. So that's what I have to say at this particular situation. I just have to pray to God. I don't know what else, because Frankie fought. I can't do this anymore. I have to say what I need to say, show all the evidence, and leave it to God, because it's too late. The time is gone, and the tragedies happened. They had their world tours with Head Crack, Keynote, Madison Square Garden, Dana White, Michael Jackson, President. It doesn't going to change anything. Nothing. What happened. Whoever got the money, whoever got the house, whoever's cleaning up credibility, you don't even know the stories of some of these people that I would have never allowed in my life again had I become more wealthy, and I would have put them in a position where it ain't a free ride. And there's just a number of situations, but like I said, I'm in the same position my mother is, like a beggar. Okay, just throwing babies to the left or right. She's ditching this child right over here and it dies. Not even a proper burial. Shit, we gave our dog socks of proper burial. When our dog fucking died, not socks, chapulín, which means grasshopper, which means it's our chihuahua. When our chihuahua died, my dad, Frankie, and Julian went all the way down at the end of the fence and got a shovel and started digging at like 10 o'clock at night and started digging a hole. And Frankie's the one that I watched Frankie. I don't know if I was there, but I don't know if I walked up as they were placing the body in there. But I do remember I was standing. I didn't walk all the way down there, but I was next to my dog, and he was on like that, and he was dead on the chair. And Frankie would get with a shovel, and my dad was with a flashlight, holding the flashlight and having like a ceremony, like, yeah, we gotta bury Chapolin. Yeah, he died, you know. And my dad's sitting there. This is the dog died when I was 12, so my dad had already sort of, I think, it was right before his suicide or right after. I think it was right after his suicide. It was right around that time that it happened. I'm gonna say right after that it happened, but when the dog died, my dad was holding the flashlight, and Jillian was right there, and Frankie was literally just with a shovel doing this, like digging a hole to bury him. And it was at night, and there's no lights over there. There's no lights. We don't have light poles where the alley is. It's sort of dark. Like there's a lot of light way across the other street where we live, but everything in between, because our backyard is really huge, there isn't any light there. So all you could see, it looked like you were burying a person. But you could tell that it looked like a ceremony. Jillian was kind of crying, and he was just like, Chapolin died. And he wasn't crying, but I was looking at my dad, because I was standing at the top of the hill, and they were at the bottom of the hill, and it was like a ceremony. That's what it looked like. They were standing in a circle, sort of, and then burying the dog. Even that dog got a burial, and got a moment. And I think, I remember walking, and they placed, the hole was maybe about 2.5 to 3 feet, maybe 3 to 4 feet, because my dad told me, I don't know where Frankie got this information, or he asked my mother, but my mother was nowhere in sight in the backyard. And she wasn't anywhere in sight. In fact, she didn't even want to go in the backyard. She didn't want to deal with it at all. And I don't even know if she was inside the house. Yeah, she was in the house, but she was completely like, she didn't want nothing to do with it. And I remember that. She was not outside. She did not communicate. She didn't look at the dog. The dog was in a plastic bag on the chair. Right there at the very top, right, like 20 feet from the house, from the backyard, from the wall window, kitchen window. And because Frankie, when he was burying the dog, he told me where he was digging, and he goes, yeah, I gotta make sure it's deep enough, because what happens is when you bury a body, especially like a dog, or creatures, they do this with human beings too, you have to bury them at least 6 feet. Human beings at least 6 feet underneath the ground, because they did studies of it, and through history they've known, or whatever, through trial and error, that the fumes from the decomposing body of the flesh actually surface up through the dirt into the grass, and critters actually start crawling in maggots and start, so it decomposes the body. So Frank when he was burying, he goes, yeah, I gotta make sure it's deep enough, and it was like 3 feet. It was like 3 or 4 feet, because it wasn't 2 feet. It was about, I want to say it was about that much. It was about that one. It was about 3 feet. It was like a solid 3 feet, maybe a little more than 3 feet, because he's a little dog. And we buried the dog, and the reason that we had to bury, Frankie was saying, because you got to make sure you bury him, because the maggots will start coming up underneath the ground, and that's what he said, we talked about when we were burying the dog, is you got to be careful, because the maggots will start crawling up from the ground, and they'll start decomposing. Jillian was right there, my dad, and it wasn't like a laughter, it wasn't anything, it was just like, we have to take care of this. And Frankie was very, I gotta take care of this. I gotta take care of this. It wasn't like it was like procedure. It wasn't like cold, like an emotional cold. It was just like, this is the circle of life. This is the cycle of life. This is the cycle of life. And there wasn't anything that was like cold about the situation that with Frankie, my dad, or anything. It was like a procedure, and it was a process, and it was the circle of life, that we go from birth to death, and that's I interpreted it as, because when Frankie was saying, he goes, I gotta make sure it's deep enough because the bugs in it will start eating him, and they'll start crawling underneath the ground, and it'll start smelling bad and attract. Also, he said, if I remember correctly, he said other animals will come by and they'll smell the corpse and they'll dig it up, and they'll pick her up, whether it's any kind of animals out there, and that's why he buried it at least 3 to 4 feet underneath the ground, so that wouldn't happen. He had that conversation. But even this burial that had happened, my mom was nowhere in sight. She did not step. I've never talked about this. She did not step outside. She didn't want anything. Because I walked outside. When I walked, the house felt really empty. Like it felt just empty. And I noticed, I could tell somebody, there was some commotion going in the backyard. And I don't know who it was, or maybe Jillian. As soon as I walked through the door, my mom didn't tell me. Jillian, I think, may have been in the living room or in the kitchen, or I happened to look, and I don't think anybody told me. I happened to look, and I saw a trash bag on the chair, and I saw Frankie from the kitchen all the way down there, and they were burying him. I saw with a flashlight, as Frankie's dad was holding the flashlight that we had. Same flashlight we took to Mexico many years ago, and we were burying. They were burying something, and I knew somebody died. One of our family members died. We consider what we knew, and I looked at the trash bag and said, "Yeah, it must have been true." And I walked out there, and it was sure enough. Nobody told me. That's right. Nobody did tell me. That's whenever I looked at Jillian. But I walked back into the house. And my mother either was in the living room, either the first time I walked in and didn't tell me anything, but she went into her room, but she was like nowhere in sight. I don't know if she went for a walk. I don't know. She wanted nothing. She didn't even want to have a conversation about it. She was just like, I don't care. Like, she was disconnected from it. She just, I think, somewhere else, like disconnected. So I say this because this is some of the turmoil that nobody ever understands. My sister passing away, there was no proper burial, and I will have to go into this situation until it does, if I ever live long enough. But I thought I would make this conversation. My mother was nowhere in sight. She did not at all. I asked her, I'm going to say, hey, ¿qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? ¿Chapulín se murió? Like, I'm sitting there, like, expressing, oh, Chapulín se murió, Mom. ¿Qué pasó? And when I see my mother's reaction, it's a lot like, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's not an aggressive. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, she does that. So when she's doing that expression, it's because of the child that she has right next door that nobody knows about. And so nobody understands this behavior. She's not saying it because she knows it's coming. She knows the guilt and death process because she... And the thing that was so disturbing that I thought about it that I was aware of, my dad's old. My dad's getting close to the cemetery, and she's going to be a widow. It makes her think about, my husband's going to be dying soon. That's what, it's not a comfortable feeling because you have a dead dog over there. And there was nothing that was argumentative. My mother just didn't want anything, because I remember, like, I asked her, and I was like, are you, was he para afuera para ayudar? And she was just like, she didn't even argue. She's like, I don't care. Like, se murió. But when we had the dogs, my mom really liked Chapulín a lot. She's a cute little dog. But, that's what I have to say about that. So, some of these things I won't be able to talk about with Frankie. And that's that.